Go ahead.
Thank you. About the vice president's trip, why is it then that when the vice president is asked if she has plans to visit the border, she says we've been to the border, even though she has not as vice president?
Well, as the vice president, she does speak for the actions of the people in the administration. She certainly helps oversee. I expect that sometimes she may go to the border, Peter, but as you know, what her focus has been, what the assignment is specifically, is to work with leaders in the Northern Triangle. She's on a trip doing exactly that, exactly what the president asked her to do.
And as we understand it, though, her main focus is to try to address the root causes of migration. Did somebody decide here that it would not be helpful for her to go to the border and talk to people who just migrated here?
Well, again, I think that at some point she may go to the border. We'll see. But she's in the Northern Triangle now to have discussions with leaders, with community leaders, with civil society leaders, with the embassy about how we can work together. And obviously she's made a couple of announcements already, probably more to come before she comes back to the United States.
And she described, though, you said she might go to the border. She described a trip to the border yesterday as a grand gesture. Why?
Look, Peter, again, I think her focus of this trip is on meeting with leaders, having a discussion about how to address corruption, how to address the root causes, how to work together to address humanitarian challenges in these countries. That's exactly what she's doing on the ground, and I'm sure she'll report back to the president when she returns. Go ahead.
I'm going to follow up with the border in a second, but let me ask you, if I can, on infrastructure. You laid out some of the conversations that the president is having, including sort of his message to some of the Democrats on Capitol Hill right now, to sort of get a little better detail there. Would the president support, does he want Democrats to more actively pursue the process of reconciliation as an option?
Well, Peter, I would say that the Democrats are already moving forward on marking up components of the bill. And Democratic leadership has been clear that they want to move forward on infrastructure and making a historic investment in infrastructure. There'll be a discussion about the mechanics of that, over the course of the coming days, and we'll have more to read out once those discussions have been had.
So we can't, in terms of like the time frame for those decisions to be made, obviously the message is Democrats just keep going and we might need you.
Well, look, I think to be clear, the president's always going to continue to pursue opportunity to work with Republicans, regardless of what mechanics are moving forward in the House. He's going to keep pursuing those opportunities, and we fully expect that there will be several pathways that are moving on different channels as we look to how we're going to get this American Jobs Plan passed.
As it relates to the border right now, we heard from the Vice President yesterday where her message was very simple and blunt. She said to those migrants who would be considering coming, she said, do not come. Obviously, there's some progressive Democrats, among other critics, who have been frustrated by that. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, perhaps most prominently, saying it was disappointing to see. She said, among other things, that seeking asylum at any U.S. border is a 100% legal method of arrival. What does the White House say to those progressive Democrats, among others, who are frustrated by the message the White House is delivering?
Well, first, of course it is. And one of our focuses and the priorities of the president and the vice president is to improve asylum processing at the border, to work with a range of Democrats and hopefully Republicans, because in history it's been a bipartisan effort to get immigration reform passed, to ensure there's a more viable pathway to citizenship and a better processing at the border. What the vice president was simply conveying is that there's more work to be done, that we don't have these systems in place yet. It's still a dangerous journey, as we've said many times from here and from many forums before, and we need more time to get the work done to ensure that asylum processing is where it should be.
And last question about the Senate report, bipartisan Senate report, as it relates to what happened on January 6th. Obviously, it addressed the security planning, the response failures. We know that that's held up on Capitol Hill right now. Your reaction to that, and what, if anything, more the White House can do as it relates to those security failures in terms of planning and the like?
Well, first let me just reiterate that, of course, the events of January 6th were an assault on our democracy and the rule of law, and the president has been outspoken in calling for a full and independent investigation to what transpired. As it relates to the report, our team is currently reviewing the report and its findings to inform our ongoing efforts to ensure something like that could never happen again, and what role, of course, the federal government can play. There are many roles, as you know, that the report seems to surface on what officials on Capitol Hill could do, and we want to assess how we can be a good partner in this effort moving forward. I would also note that on his first full day in office, he asked his team to launch a review on how we can improve the federal government's response to the threat of domestic terrorism, something he also touched on when he was in Tulsa last week, and we'll be releasing that broader strategy soon as well.